Furious Driving, proud to be supported by Diamond Bright, protecting, cleaning and caring for the Furious fleet and for yours with 10% off using code FD10. Follow the links in the description below. Hello and welcome to Furious Driving, and today I'm in a car which has the slightly dubious honour of being the last of its kind in a certain way. Because today I'm driving an Astra, and obviously there's lots more Astras been and gone since then, but this is an Astra Convertible. An Astra Convertible designed and built by Bertone. So not only the only Vauxhall Astra built in Italy, the last production car built by Bertone. That sounded nice. Now, if you like reviews of interesting, unusual, rare, different cars, then please hit like and subscribe and join me for the rest of this review and for many more. And many more. Or something. Now, this particular convertible is based on a car with many names. The Astra G, the Mk4 Astra, the TS, and of course it's known by a dozen other names with different manufacturers around the world, all part of the GM stable, Holden, Chevy, who knows. There are many, many, many of them. But we're not talking about that today. Today, we're focusing purely on this convertible. Now, while the Astra G/TS/Mk4 came out in 1998 and ran until 2004, because the convertibles and the coupes and things tend to be a little bit niche, they're a bit a la carte, and so this didn't arrive until 2001, having been designed and then eventually built by Bertone alongside the coupe, which it shares a lot of components with. And then they ran it for a year longer than the rest of the Mk4, till 2005. And it was an excellent basis for a convertible, because while the Mk3 Astra had been a solid performer in its way, it was looking dated and it was never really dynamically the best car in the world. The Mk4, though, set out to address so many of those issues. So it handled better, it looked better, it was better built. It's apparently got Lotus-tuned suspension underneath it as well, which explains why it does actually stick to a corner rather well. The GSI was a bit of a darling of the magazines as it goes. And so we've got a lovely stiff shell that we can afford to lop the top off and then enjoy our top-down motoring. The original design had been by Hans Sear, but Bertone took that, ran with it, sleekified it from the A-post back really, longer doors, sharper rake windows, and of course the different rear end, and built it in Grugliasco near Turin. As I say, the only Italian-built Astra in the world was this limited range of cars. Giving it the power roof gave it an extra little bit of flair, because they were going up against things like the BMW E46 convertible, Saab 9.3, the Audi A4. Obviously, being a fair bit cheaper did give it the edge when it came to that aspect of sales, although not having the same badge panache did hurt it as well. So loading it with all the toys like air conditioning and a power roof, that went a long way to helping the salespeople out. Now, like so many of the cars we love, these have been through their doldrums years where they were worth absolutely nothing. And now, of course, they're edging into the territory of 20 plus years old and borderline classics, so they're starting to become quite interesting. The problem is, of course, so many of them will have been run as budget bangers on a shoestring for a number of years, and now finding good ones is becoming harder and harder. This one has got 78,000 miles on it, but looks like far less. And it has been polished up to a very high shine indeed, and it looks fabulous. The owner's done a great job of it. A slight issue is, of course, that these engines, these Ecotechs, do use around half a litre of oil per 1,000 miles, and so when people are running them on a shoestring, they're not going to bother checking that kind of thing too frequently or too religiously, so the number of these cars will just dwindle through, well, natural loss, natural wastage. Driving them, though, is actually quite nice. There could be a little more torque. This is the 1.8 with 123 horsepower. There could be a little more torque, but it pulls quite happily. And of course, it's a convertible, so it's not all about straight line speed and throwing it through the corners. It's about enjoying the ride. and it's a very, very enjoyable ride. Coil springs all round, McPherson struts at the front. The steering is sharp and it turns in nicely. This was a massive step up on the Mark III, and of course the Escort was a joke by the time this thing came out. In terms of dynamics, its best opposition was perhaps the Rover R3. What didn't help it though was that the Mark I Focus was just around the corner when this car was launched, and that dynamically trounced everything, literally everything. Right, let's pull over and have a quick look around the interior of the car. Now, a big selling point of the Astra Convertible was that you had the ultimate flex, that you could stand at the bar, and if the sun came out, you could just put the roof down from your key fob. Well, in theory you can do. Sometimes the button doesn't want to work. There we go. 2 minutes to start the key, 30 seconds to power fold the roof back. Very swank. And you don't even have to step away from your caramel macchiato, and the roof is down. So Bertone took what was a solid and interesting and attractive even, if uninspiring perhaps, design from Vauxhall and turned it into something quite sleek, an actual rival to things like the Audi A4 convertible, the Saab 9.3, the Volkswagen Golf and Beetle. So although nothing's really changed here at the front, you've got the same headlights, bumper, wings, yada yada yada, from the A-post back, things have gone different because Bertone also did the coupe, which shares these long doors. And this line just carries on and becomes very sleek, very smooth. The way this area here, this lifts up, this tonneau, folds up and conceals the roof, gives it a completely flat rear end. You might be thinking, that's going to completely destroy your load space. Still got 330 litres of boot in here, which is more than a Peugeot 306 convertible and 1 billion litres more than a Volkswagen Beetle convertible. But yes, it is suddenly a very elegant and stylish looking car from the side. Now, although lots of it is bespoke, they've done what they can to keep the costs down as much as possible. So we've got standard headlights, standard bumpers, but this is a bespoke boot lid and of course bespoke tonneau cover, all this kind of stuff. But here in the boot, as I say, 330 litres, and this area doesn't move, not like some cars that will cut into the boot space and compromise your load luggage area. Now, under the bonnet of the convertible, we had 4 petrol engine choices, starting with the lowly 1.6 making 101 horsepower, going up to this 1.8 making 123. Then there was the 2.2 making 145 horsepower, which put it on par with hot hatches of the late 90s. And finally, there was the ultimate. There was the 2-litre turbo making 197 horsepower. That was a bit of an insane thing to put in a convertible, but this thing, believe it or not, because the Mark IV was so much stiffer than previous Astras, there wasn't a great deal of scuttle shake in the thing, and it could actually handle it relatively well. There was, however, no diesel option. Now, some people might say the lack of diesel was a mistake because in the early noughties, people were really into the frugal diesel lifestyle. However, convertible diesel is not really what you want. You often see the Alpha Spider from the early noughties with the diesel in, and it just seems wrong, that kind of chuggy noise with the great looks. So I think Vauxhall made the right choice. Now, the interior was solid and well thought out, and the doors have got a real chunky feel to them. They don't feel fragile at all. And stepping aside, there were 2 colourway choices on the convertible. We had black, which is perhaps more hard-wearing, hides the dirt, but this is the beige, which looks so much more uplifting in an otherwise fairly, or potentially quite drab interior. On the doors, we've got obviously the black plastic elephant hide for the bulk of it, the armrest, the top of it. However, we have got the beige leather insert here in the doors, which does make the thing look so much more classy. It's even ruched. Ruched, I tell you, that means it's posh. You can't argue with that. In the door on the driver's side, we have got electric windows for all 4 windows. It is frameless and pillarless, you will notice, which is exceptionally nice. We've got the nice chunky metal door handle we had from standard, and of course the parts bin mirror adjustment and hoo-ha modular thing. We've got tweeters, we've got mid-range, we've got a cup holder and a small pocket in the door, so we are loaded with all the toys. Let's have a quick take it in moment. This car has got the optional extra windbreaker, which apparently does make a vast difference to the ride quality and just about fits in the boot if you do need to unexpectedly take a couple of rear seat passengers. I will just mention quickly, This is a two-person only rear seat. It's 2 seat belts which are buckled from the centre, which is quite an unusual thing. Not a 3-person bench, a 2-person bench, because obviously the mechanism takes up a great deal of extra width in the side. So we can't be doing that. Stepping aboard, these seats are sporty and supportive. They're quite firm, like the suspension and the ride in general. Firm but supportive, so they're comfortable, but they can be a little bit jarring perhaps after a while, but they look good and they feel good. This car's over 2 decades old and they still look very good indeed. Now you will notice the owner has, of course, accessorised. It's the same owner as the Nova convertible we featured a little while ago. As a gentleman who does enjoy his accessorisation with period correct details, we've got the iPod Touch, which is the colour screen, 30 gig, that's a big one. Yeah, the colour screen and the touch wheel, so you can play games and watch movies on this one. We got the Motorola Flip, which probably still works. And we've got a 2003 digital camera, which is probably as much as 2 megapixels. The Kodak EasyShare, wow. Now, getting back to the car in hand, the dashboard / T-shelf area is reasonably good. It's good, it's big, it's flat, it's expansive, however, not very tall, so only good for small tin coffee cups. So ideally, your Hippo enamel mug will fit perfectly on there. Being a slightly later car into the run, we've got airbag on the passenger side as well as the driver's side in here. And the steering wheel is a big chunky leather thing with a number of controls on, which is becoming very much the thing to do in the early noughties, of course. It's now de rigueur. We do a horn test while we're here. Ooh, that's an Italian style parp, because we're in a stylishly Italian car today. Into the centre we have got, well, mostly everything is very, very black indeed, but we've got a little lift of a lighter, almost silver area in the middle. We've got the clock and digital readout here in the centre. Then we've got our big oil drum air vents in the middle as well, which are repeated on the left and the right of the car. Hazard light is a big chunky affair just there. Underneath that we've got the Becker Traffic Pro, which is quite a nice and quite an expensive radio. Hitting a little button just here, we get this CD access. Isn't that cool? Beneath that we've got our standard 3-dial air ventage control and air conditioning as well. So super posh. And of course the power hood, because it is an electric hood in this car. Not the smallest car with a power hood fitted. That honour goes to the Punto, of course. Underneath that we've got our 12-volt lighter socket and our ashtray, which does of course have the Bertone little label on there, so you don't forget you are in an Italian built car. Beneath which we have what the owner is calling some of the best heated seats we've ever been in. These are 5-stage heated seats. That's a lot of choice. You could get lost in those choices. Almost too much choice, you might say. 5-speed manual gearbox, and being a Vauxhall you have to lift a little collar to get it into reverse. Manual handbrake, which is good. A cup holder here in the back, so your rear seat passengers do need to argue about who gets to have a cup of coffee on the way. Stepping forward again, we've got big clear dials. We've got the temperature, the fuel, the rev counter and the speedo all outlined with these rather nice chrome bezels, making it look very pretty indeed. And stepping back from that we've got our, as always, standard parts bin Vauxhall stalks, which are not quite big flat things. Unusually big and flat for indicators and lights on one side, wipers on the left, and of course the steering wheel, which we mentioned before. And of course, being a Vauxhall, we do have the lights on the right hand side. Pull for interior light because Vauxhall. Front and rear fogs also because posh. Right, I think that is the extent of the interior. We do have a courtesy light up here. We're running out of things to say. In the back we have more ruched side leather. We've got side speakers, little tiny arm rest lits in the back, and we've got a ski hatch, as on the standard Astra, a ski hatch to reach through into the boot if you want to take this car somewhere exotic, which I'm sure you probably do. And now we're going to take it to exotic, probably Snodland, for a little drive around. So the Astra is a safe and solid performer. Perhaps its biggest crime is not being exciting enough to look at. It drives really rather well. I think the next level up engine would be the sweet spot. People say the 2.2 is the best one to have because it has the bigger power without the highly strung nature of the turbo, which is probably a fair point. In the late noughties, Bertone started having significant financial troubles as manufacturers started bringing more and more work in-house and stopped outsourcing to the niche carrosseries and coach builders. and they started going into administration proceedings around 2009 from memory. Ultimately, they became wrapped up as part of an architectural company, just a name tag on some building design work, which is a sad end to an illustrious name in motoring's heritage. Likewise, Recaro, which went this just a couple of weeks ago. But across the interior, it's very well laid out. Even if it's not an exciting dashboard, it is everything in the right place. Everything's fingertip length away. The pedals are in the right place under your feet. The steering wheel's in the right place at the end of your arms. Nothing's at a funny angle or hard to see. Vauxhall's engineers, or GM's engineers, probably Opel actually in Germany more likely, Opel's engineers did a fantastic job of just getting the ergonomics really good. These seats though are very hard, and you would notice this on a long drive. The leather is typical Vauxhall Opel leather, and it looks good and it's so hard wearing, but it's not soft and supple like on an Italian car, which just cuddles you and makes you want to snuggle into it. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this little look around the Mk4 Astra TS Astra G Bertone Convertible. If you have, please, as always, hit like and subscribe, and join us again next time driving something completely different.